Welcome, everyone, to the Multiple System Atrophy Conference Navigating MSA. My name is Lisa Hale, and I am honored to introduce one of my interdisciplinary team members, Miss Sara Blass. Sara is a physical therapist at our Phi Beta Phi Rehab Institution here in Nashville. And together today, she and I are going to talk about a patient scenario around living your best life despite MSA. And from there, we're going to go through some scenarios and answer any questions that you may have. Welcome, Sara.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, here's a major concern that we feel a lot of people experience, and we want to shed some real positive light on it and give you some productive, down-to-earth tools to go out and enjoy yourself with your family. Many MSA patients, we feel, don't feel comfortable or have the tools to plan for activities outside their home. Many times they're self-conscious or feel that they're ill-prepared. What we would like to do today is show you that we can give you practical tools so that you can go out and do the things that you like to do with a lot of pre-planning. Let me give you a scenario of a patient, and then Sara, if you can give us your pearls of wisdom, that would be fantastic. My patient is Jessie, and she is a care partner, and my patient is Rob. Jessie and Rob are having their 20th wedding anniversary. Rob has had MSA for the past 3 years. He has a great family support team. He's still walking without a wheelchair, but is starting to really have balance issues. His speech is normal, with some initial swallowing issues. He is having urinary incontinence. It is an issue, and he does wear protective undergarments, okay? Jessie wants to plan a surprise day for him, something that takes him outside of his normal schedule and completely outside of the home. What they'd like to do is 3 of their favorite things. They'd like to go to lunch at their favorite restaurant, go to a movie matinee, and then watch the sunset at their favorite beach where they first met. Jessie has talked to me in clinic, and she's working really hard to prepare this surprise for her spouse. Teach me and everyone on this call how we can make this a really thoughtful, well-planned, and frankly, a super fun event.
Love this. I love the care that Jessie is taking to provide a great experience for Rob. And this is exactly where we come in as a team. There are a lot of things I can think of off the top of my head, but the first thing I want to point out is that this is exactly the type of thing that a patient would bring to us in clinic, working with us for specific scenarios, and we can talk through some of those, working on mobility issues, just brainstorming things that they might encounter in the community that they don't know about. So I think this is a great idea for Jessie, and yeah, this is exactly what we're working on. Some of the things that come to mind for me that we would be talking about in clinic would be preparation. Like you mentioned, Lisa, preparation is key. And so I think everything we can do to, think of any of the potential scenarios that could arise, think of how we're going to work through those, being proactive about having the correct equipment on hand, scenarios if we encounter certain mobility issues. So preparation is the biggest part of this. And I think when you think of preparation, okay, some of the things that come to mind for me are like accommodations, making sure things are accessible. Talk me through the 3 things that they want to do again.
They want to go to lunch. at their favorite bistro down the road?
Great. So the first thing I would do for that, I would want to know where parking is for this bistro. Does Rob, I know Rob's still ambulatory, does Rob have to walk a long distance to the restaurant? Do they have accessible parking? Is it a situation where Jesse has to drop him off at the curb and he has to wait for her to go park the car? I think those are important things for her to know as well. And then once we actually get to the restaurant, I think Jesse has the opportunity to call ahead as well and see what type of entry into the restaurant they have, and are there, what the table situation is like. Is he going to have to navigate through a bunch of small tables to get to their specific location, or can he be seated at a table close to the door? I know you mentioned some urinary incontinence, and so would sitting close to a restroom be helpful for them? That's something to take into consideration.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think? Teach me, Sara, what do you think about breaking these 3 events into 2 events? My concern is that's a lot to be packed into one day. What are your thoughts around that?
It is. I try really hard not to live by any hard and fast rules with my patients, and I let it come back to them. I let them be the ultimate decision makers. I think giving some guidelines of energy conservation kind of tips and management strategies, I think, are really important. But ultimately, I think our patients know themselves the best and they know their bodies the best. And I think if Jessie feels like this is something she can do, then I want to equip her with
Okay.
as much as she can to do it. I also want her to be realistic about the energy tolls that this is going to take, because the last thing we want is for them to have a wonderful, first half of the day and then have Rob completely tuck her out. And now she's having to, help him get in and out of the car and they're both exhausted. That's not a fun day for anybody.
Teach me, Sara, about appropriate and safe transfers getting from a car out of the car, over the curb, in the front door with as much grace and ease as possible. What are your recommendations in that scenario?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first plug I'll make is that this is absolutely something somebody should bringing to their physical therapist to practice in clinic. These are the exact scenarios we'd be practicing. If Jesse and Rob were patients of mine and they knew they were going to this restaurant and they had to navigate a curb, we would be practicing that in clinic. I would be making sure that Jesse knew exactly how to put a gait belt on Rob, where to hold it, where to guard him appropriately. We would practice with Rob so that he has some of that muscle memory built in, so he remembers, oh, this is how Sara told me to step up with this foot first. So I think, along the lines of preparation is key. I think that's one way that we can really prepare. In general terms, I think just moving slowly, letting Jessie get a good lay of the land first and kind of seeing what she has to navigate with Rob, and then talking through some of the things that she needs him to do, and really communicating clearly in the moment. I'm always a fan of a gait belt. I think any physical therapist is. So if there's ever a situation where there's discomfort in moving somebody or there's a fear for safety, I think a gait belt is a really great added layer of security.
Where do you recommend getting a gait belt and working with it to the best of its ability to empower the patient to be independent?
Yeah, honestly, Amazon is a great place to get a gait belt. They have a wide array of sizes and lengths. In terms of working with one, I think working directly with your therapist is a great way to learn some strategies. I like to use gait belts preventatively and proactively as opposed to
Okay.
catching somebody from a fall. I like to use it to guide and really help provide security. And so
Okay.
I think kind of instilling that kind of education with the patient and the caregiver is really important.
So let's change the scenario a little bit, because oftentimes patients may have progressed from a gait belt and walking to a walking device or a rollator or a cane? What are your recommendations in that scenario?
Yeah, I think a lot of the same, pearls still apply. I think there's just an added layer of navigation you have to consider. Curbs look a little differently when you're also navigating a walker or a rollator. Um, Jessie has to consider, especially I'm thinking of a rollator, which are a little bulkier. She has to consider her ability to lift a rollator in and out of the car and store it, making sure that she can both safely guard Rob and also manage his equipment. So those are just some things to consider. That's going to, if they're doing three separate activities, that's her lifting things in and out of a car three times, navigating three different scenarios and environments. It's just another layer of complexity.
And what I really heard that was new for me is that many of these scenarios can be practiced in a physical therapy appointment environment, allowing both Rob and Jesse the ability to gain confidence in being able to conquer it in a very safe environment and then going outside and taking those tools out into everyday living.
Absolutely. Um, in my clinic specifically, I know I work a lot with patients and caregivers. I think that's a key part of our role, because nothing happens in isolation, right? Where my patients are living with family members, with caregivers, with partners who also need to know how to best support their loved ones. And so, some situations I can think of, we have driving instruction cars that we use, and so I have the ability to take my patients down to these cars and practice getting in and out of cars and having patients navigate folding up a wheelchair and putting it in a car. Is that something they're able to safely do? We can go out into the community. We're right in the middle of Nashville, and so we can, walk out into the community, navigate through the hospital. A lot of times for patients and caregivers, just having the exposure with somebody that they trust and who's done it before can do wonders to build their confidence to be able to go out and do these things on their own.
And I think one thing that I have learned from working with your team is that it's a long term relationship because at different points in time, you're going to need different advice based on the ability of a patient. And what's really nice is that that continuity of care is there where you're my person that I can contact as a social worker and say, okay, this is where Rob is today. If you can't get to them right away, I can be that mediary and talk with them and get them through that emergency or crisis moment until they can get into clinic to see you, which I think is awesome.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of my colleagues do the same, that, exactly like you said, it's a long-term relationship, and we have a tendency to, pass on our contact information even after we discharge a patient, because we know that life doesn't stop when you stop seeing us, right? You're going to continue to encounter new new environments, new issues that may arise. And so we always want patients to have access to either the therapists, the social workers, whoever it may be, to continue to, have access to that information.
Do you collaborate? Because then oftentimes there may be speech issues as well. There may be speech therapy going on, and there, around swallowing and those challenges, maybe a tracheostomy, maybe not, as well as occupational challenges. As a physical therapist, do you collaborate with those other entities in helping the person?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is absolutely. In my clinic, we have a weekly team meeting where we meet all of the disciplines and discuss all of our patients. Um, like I said, nothing happens in isolation on the patient front. Nothing happens in isolation from the therapy front, too. We're constantly discussing and collaborating with our team members, be it occupational therapy, speech therapy, Like I said, we have driver training here, so we collaborate with our driver instructors
Okay.
as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, as things arise, our patients can work with you and you can teach me and my team to be able to continue to support throughout the whole process.
Absolutely. One of the great things about physical therapy too, any of the therapies here is we're really able to individualize care, and our plans of care aren't the same for everybody. So what might start as seeing somebody 2 to 3 times a week because they really need the help, we can structure that and kind of wean off of that to 1 time a week as they continue to progress and get better, as their caregiver starts to learn techniques and is able to facilitate things independently. And then having the contact with social work, with our clinic, I think really instills the confidence and comfort of our patients to be able to, really attempt things independently and continue living their life and doing the things that they love to do, knowing that they have us to call if they need it.
What is your process? How does a neurologist make a referral to you for a patient, or a urologist or a cardiologist saying, hey, my person really needs to work with your team?
Yeah, so we are a neurologic specialty clinic, and there aren't many of those. We are one of the ones in Nashville, and so we only see patients with neurologic diagnoses. So our neurologists know when they get patients with certain diagnoses that we are the clinic they need to come to. And so the neurologist either has that contact information, or if the patient knows, hey, this is where I want to go. If they're not seeing neurology, they're seeing, urology or a PCP. Because we're a neurospecialty clinic, as long as we have a neurologic diagnosis, any physician can refer to us.
Fantastic. And then my final question is, I would love to say that all our patients live in Nashville, but they live in all of the United States, North America, and globally. If I have patients that come to me with questions saying, hey, Lisa, this is great, but I don't live in Nashville. Can you please help me? Can I work with your team to identify applicable PT, OT, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy resources?
Absolutely. You'll see the NCS at the end of my title there. So I'm a neurologic certified specialist, and there's actually a database for physical therapists that lists all of the NCS PTs throughout the country. So that's one way that we have access to other neuro trained physical therapists. And then, yeah, our clinic has partnerships with clinics across the country that we can absolutely send contact information to or refer to.
Fantastic. Sara, thank you for your time today. Thank you for all the support that you give our MSA patients here. Everyone, thank you for letting us be part of your conference. If you have any questions or concerns that we did not bring up, first, we apologize. And two, we will be glad to work with you. Please send me an email. My email is Lisa, Lisa, .hale, HALE, at VUMC.org. And Sara and I will collaborate and work with you to the best of our ability. We hope we gave you some pearls of wisdom, as I call them. And I hope we gave you the inspiration to live your best life. We are here to support you. Thank you for your time today. Enjoy the rest of your conference.